The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Wonder Woman 84, or is it WW84? I can never get which is the actual title, but one of those movies' titles is the one we're discussing tonight, and we're going to discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings of this new superhero movie. And joining me today on the panel are, of course, Maria Johnson. Hi, Maria. Welcome back.
Hi, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. Can't get started soon enough, so I'll shut up.
Right. And also Angela Cialana. Hi, Angela.
Hi there, y'all.
Andrew Hermes. Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks for having me.
And Father Chip Hines. Hi, Father Chip.
Hello and howdy.
And howdy, that's right.
Because she had the y'all. I need something.
Howdy is definitely not a Boston thing, so you can't have that.
I need a catchphrase. I need a catchphrase.
We don't want any Boston catchphrases. They're all bad. Before we get into the discussion of the movie, let's talk about, if you have not yet done so, please subscribe to the podcast in Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, your favorite podcast app. We also have the SQPN YouTube channel where you should also make sure to hit the bell to get notifications. And we put the audio up on YouTube in case you don't know. We don't post the video. Nobody wants to see that. So let's talk about this new movie. This is the new Wonder Woman movie that came out at Christmas 2020, and it was in theaters and on HBO Max Plus or whatever they call it now.
Thank you, God.
Yes, we didn't all have to go out to the theater to see it. We could watch it from the comfort of our home. It's the new movie starring Gal Gadot, Chris Pine, the sequel to the original Wonder Woman movie in 2017, which was such a big hit. And so now we have the new one. And just as a quick, synopsis before we get into discussing the themes of this movie, it takes place in 1984, as you might guess, which was much more technicolor than I remembered it, but okay. And although I did remember the big hair and all the parachute pants.
Shoulder pads.
Shoulder pads.
Shoulder pads.
Yes, the women with shoulder pads.
Yeah. Yes, everybody. Diana Prince is now working at the Smithsonian as a historical artifact expert. She is an artifact. That's right.
She is an artifact.
Right. Yes, she's very
How
ancient.
old is she?
Well, that's a good question. And she encounters a new coworker named Barbara Minerva, who will become important. And then there's the villain, Max Lord, sort of also another villain along with Barbara. We'll get into that. And then Steve Trevor shows up again in some strange ways. So if you've seen the movie, that's what this podcast is for you. If you have not yet seen the movie, we're going to spoil it, and we're not going to talk about all the details. So you may want to watch the movie first if that's important to you. Otherwise, enjoy what we have to say, and maybe it won't ruin it too much if you hear what we have to say about it. So let's get into the themes of the movie. And one of the things I love about Wonder Woman, the first movie, was that the character herself was imbued with I almost want to say innocent goodness. She just saw the best. She was uncynical, and that's refreshing in superheroes. There's only a few of the superheroes out there that especially in DC. Let's just say that about DC. There are not very many in the movies uncynical superheroes, and she had a fresh-eyed look. She wasn't naive. In some ways she was, but
no, she was a fish out of water, though.
Yes,
right.
Yes, yeah. She was. But in this movie, to start out, and we can discuss the opening scene in a sec, but just as the adult Diana that we see in 1984, she seemed a little different. What do you all agree with that? The character was less wide-eyed in the new world that she experiences?
It just seemed like she was tired. Like she seemed, like almost depressed. She was eating by herself. She didn't have any friends. It was just it was sad. She was like really sad, and that made me sad because I was like, oh, this poor woman. It was sad. I felt bad for her because It's Gal Gadot. I mean, how can she be by herself?
Right.
Well, she addresses it too to poor Barbara at that lunch meeting or early dinner or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was struck by her profound loneliness.
Yeah.
And when they swept through her apartment, all of those pictures of her friends as they were aging, and she was still fresh and young. She's lost her friends. I was kind of reminded a little bit of Captain America and his pining for.
Yeah.
And this whole situation is very important because we get to know what her source of pain is, and then that ends up being part of her character development throughout her internal struggle throughout the movie, so it is important. I know it's like we're almost like Barbara, because we're looking at her like, well, how can you not be happy right now? Right? But ultimately that's part of the whole situation that we come to learn, is sort of the lesson of the movie, right?
Oh boy, do they want you to learn that, because they really shove it down your throat. And I mean, yeah, with the all the pictures of Steve and her friends and his watch and all, her having dinner alone and the waiter picking up the extra setting.
That was
like, okay, we get it.
I've had that happen.
But it was. She's kind of it just felt like a
funk,
a bummer, watching, just watching her, and I, the movie starts out on such a promising, note. It's so bright, and you have like the scene in the mall and all that, and then and we get dive into her psyche a little bit and how she's feeling, and I know we'll get into this, but overall I liked the movie, but one of the problems I had was like I thought they kind of force fed the themes a little too much, and I think with that initial stuff about her loneliness and why she's lonely, I thought I think they could have given the audience a little more credit to figure that out, but yeah, I agree. We definitely this is a different Diana than we've seen before.
I really liked the message that was being sent at one point with when Barbara and Diana were having lunch. This idea of don't judge a book by its cover. Barbara looks at Diana and says, "You must have the best life," which is an important part of the whole plot. Because that's her wish. Is I wish to be Diana, and Diana's like, "No, you've got something I don't have. You have this joy, this openness, this something in some ways." What Diana used to have that she doesn't have now. So I really liked that aspect of that relationship and that message.
As long as we're talking about that lunch, I thought it was really neat. This is a very feminine theme to me that a lot of times, for women at least, women can get caught up in this competition with each other. Like, oh, I wish I had what you had. And instead of really seeing the friendship that is there, that can be there, because Diana and Barbara are both lonely. They're both looking at the other person and saying, you have what I don't have. And ultimately, they could be just relishing the friendship that is there, Yes. So I thought that was a sort of uniquely feminine sort of take on, girls going out to lunch, and yet they're caught up in the other person's life.
Yeah, I think, Angela, you're hitting on something that's important there. And, it goes back to, for me, it goes back to who wrote this movie. And it was Patty Jenkins who wrote it. In the first movie, she was the director. She didn't write it. And this movie has a different feel for the story to me than the first movie. I thought the first movie I loved the first movie, absolutely loved it. I thought it was one of the biggest surprises of that year, and I really, really thought, oh, finally we have a superhero movie franchise that can, not be depressing, and because Batman and Superman have turned into two sour dudes. And, I really, I'm just sick and tired of oh, it's so hard being Superman. It's so tough being Batman.
It's so tough being a billionaire playboy.
Yeah, exactly. You're a billionaire playboy, and the other guy has the power of a god.
Yeah.
That's the point of this movie.
Yeah. So I think, with this movie, Patty Jenkins took on not only directing, but she took on the writing and the screenwriting, and it seems like I think she bit off a lot here, and I'm not sure that it ended up being a coherent movie, in my opinion. It was not coherent in a lot of spaces. Dom, you were mentioning before we started taping, the jet with all of a sudden has fuel in it, I mean, and how did they get back from Cairo?
Well,
I still don't know how they got back.
Lots of plot holes in this one.
The guy who
that's the problem.
The guy who learned how to fly World War I like biplanes.
Yeah.
Can hop on a jet.
That's like me, because I can drive. I can drive, right? That's like me going into a Formula One car.
Yeah.
Okay, like
and not killing yourself.
And not killing myself and winning the race.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
well, she's a demigod with all kinds of powers.
Yes.
So I would just say that it was Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah. She was literally the god in that machine.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, she did make it invisible.
She did.
So,
Yeah.
Well, now I liked how they did. I like that. I liked the invisible plane. I thought that was. I don't know. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, they provided a reason. Zeus made Themyscira invisible, and that's her father, and she's worked out the power. So, okay, I get that.
Clever.
Yeah,
that was the least of my problems.
Let's talk about
the jet flying was it was the most important problem I had right there.
Right. So I want to kind of talk about that opening scene. There was a long 11-minute opening scene of what did I wrote down what it looked like. The Amazon Parkour Olympics triathlon. Like when they're hopping on those things going parkour.
I know. I was waiting for Dwight Schrute to pop out.
That's right. But I mean, it was kind of awesome. But it was all to drive home this most important theme for the movie here that we were going to carry through, which is what she's told: no true hero is born from lies.
Right.
And patience, diligence, and the courage to face the truth are most important. And so I turned to my wife Melanie. I said, "Well, we know what the movie's about."
Yes.
There's no question. We knew what the movie was going to be about from there. But I mean, what do you think of this theme of no true hero is born from lies? Because I feel like I drove home with the thing with Steve, with the Barbara, who could have been a hero, and Max, who could have been a hero. What do you think of this theme for the movie, this overall theme?
Yeah, no, I think what I liked about it was for me, I mean, obviously as a Catholic priest, the truth is so important, right? It's because truth is Jesus Christ. So when they started talking about the truth that really resonated for me as something like, oh, okay, well, now that I can understand and I can get behind that 100% because clearly that's the way we should live our lives. We shouldn't lie. We shouldn't be deceitful. And honestly, I really didn't think that I was rooting for Diana, and I didn't even think she did that bad a cheat. I mean, it felt like, she found a workaround, Yeah. I mean, it was, it felt like that, but I get where, they were coming from. And she certainly learned the lesson. I mean, I think she learned the lesson and she brought it forward, obviously. And I just think the idea of, a superhero striving for the truth is why I like to watch these movies.
Right. Truth and good.
That's why I loved Christopher Reeve's Superman. He was good. He was a good person.
Yep.
He didn't sit around brooding all day and moaning and crying about this and that. It was all, he was well adjusted, I mean, and she should be at least somewhat well adjusted. Her only issue right now is the immortality problem, I mean, and that's an issue, for people like her and, Superman and, all the other superheroes that have, the immortality issue. because they're, like Superman's not going to die, but Lois Lane's going to die at some point. She's going to age and get old and die. And anyone that Diana Prince gets involved with, the same thing's going to happen. And that will bring profound sadness, as we saw. I mean, she lost Steve, and she never, for what, 50 years, or not less
70.
70 years. She didn't date.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't have any other significant person in her life. How is that possible?
Right.
And how would you retain your sanity if you did that?
Hold on now. I'm going to pose that to you as a priest. She had friends, so she had relationships. The problem was that those relationships, I think so. I think that those were her friends.
No,
that she let go.
Days. Yeah.
In the old days.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about, like, how does she not have, like, it seemed like she didn't have friends after that. I understand having friends. She had friends, back in World War I. That was great. And she loved them, and they loved her, and they worked together, and they fought, and they won. And that was wonderful. But for the next 70 years, she didn't have any friends.
Well, Etta Candy was in that photo in front of the Statue of Liberty, I guess. Or
okay, yeah.
So
old.
That
she
was an old Etta Candy.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
But see, that's the immortality problem, right?
Right.
They all die, and she can't.
She really didn't have, if you think about it, she really didn't have friends for even longer, because remember, like in all the way up to Justice League, she.
Oh, that's true.
She says I've stayed hidden, and I've never loved again, and admitted that to Bruce Wayne.
Right.
And she didn't turn around until the end of Justice League.
Right.
So yeah, this sort of thing lasts for a while for Diana, and because this takes place in 1984. Obviously, this is sort of a pseudo prequel to the Batman vs Superman and Justice League movies. But yeah, it takes her a long while. I mean, I guess time for her is different because she's immortal. Something that might take someone a few months to get over might take her a few centuries, maybe. But
fair enough.
And again, growing up just around women and then falling in love with a man for the first time, and being being literally the first man she's ever encountered, I guess would have that effect on you. Especially for someone like her, that I guess all her emotions are exponentially sort of have more. Her emotions are exponentially more powerful than normal humans, because I mean she's a goddess, right? So she, and because she grew up so innocent, I think all of that piled on. Just you gotta. I guess you have to think of it in that way, even though we're human, we got to suspend, our disbelief a little bit. But yeah, took her a while.
You make a good. Go ahead, Angela.
Oh, to go back to the idea of truth and a hero not being born from lies, I think I sort of took maybe not the other side of the coin, but sort of the tangent to that, which was when Antiope's talking to her at the beginning, she says that there's no shame in not being ready to win, but that there is shame in knowing the truth in your heart and not accepting it. And that, to me, as a woman, that concept really resonated with me. To know the truth in your heart and accept it is when you can start to heal. And I was very much touched by, I guess, if I can jump to the end, that, when she is confronting Max Lord, and he has sort of created this whirlwind of lies and deceit around him, she cannot initially penetrate that sort of whirlwind. There's like literal wind going around him. And even the lasso of truth itself cannot reach him. But it is only when she is down on the ground, because she's been pushed down from that wind, and she is talking to him, and he's saying, well, don't you want your pilot back? You can have him back. All you have to do is want it. And she says, I've never wanted anything more. So she admits the truth that's in her heart. But she says, but I can't have it all. You can't have it all. And the truth is enough. And the truth is beautiful. And when I was watching that, I was crying because I was thinking about, all the things that have gone on in our family personally. Last year, there was a lot of pain, a lot of, suffering, loss. But at the same time, we also experienced a lot of really intense healing because we were able to face the truth that was in front of us, to face the reality of the situation, to face a lot of things that were inside of our hearts. And I think, we see, it's very interesting because, the first Wonder Woman movie, a lot of people liked it. The climax of the movie is this big fight, and here the climax and the confrontation with sort of the main villain is talking. She is talking to him, and she is she's admitting the truth, and she's being vulnerable. And this is a very feminine thing. She's being very vulnerable, and that vulnerability of what she is being, that I think is what allows the lasso of truth to pierce through the whirlwind of lies and to finally reach his ankle so that she can show him and show everyone sort of, the truth shining through all of those lies. So for me, that was sort of the real message of the film, was that in order for us to reach people sometimes, we need to be vulnerable with them. We need to, show them that we accept our weaknesses and our struggles and the reality of our situation.
Kind of getting back to what Father Chip was saying about how detailed and how much information was in the movie. I think that the golden ratio is off. The climax happens 2 hours into the movie, and there's only like 25 minutes left. And so all that time prior to that is relational. It's about how everybody's feeling. It's about how everybody is interacting with each other. And so you have all these other little motifs, Max and Alistair and all of those things. And so that's what Marston wanted. The creator of this character wanted this superhero to have as her superpower love, as her superpower this feminine quality. And ultimately that's why I liked the movie, because I thought that there were so many parts of it that were trash that it's just too bad to talk about it. But the whole relational thing, the fact that you have 2 hours of character development and relationship building and relationship, expression before you get to this part, it really speaks to Patty Jenkins' writing from a feminine perspective, because that's, it's all the relational aspect of the character. And I wanted to add that there was another thing that Antiope said at the beginning, and that was that greatness is not what you think. And that was the lesson that Max learns in that exchange with Wonder Woman.
Yeah, one of the things I wanted to mention too is that with all of the relational aspects, they don't skimp on the action. So it's not like 2 hours of Howard's End and then we get an action scene or something, where it's like a British, Edwardian drama. This is an action movie, and there's plenty of it, which is awesome. But yeah, they have this. It's a different kind of movie because it's a movie by Patty Jenkins, starring this most definitely feminine superhero, and I really like that aspect of it. I'm glad to get something a little different from all the other ones, and not just it's just like a guy superhero movie except it's a woman, that sort of thing, which you could have all too often. So I agree. I really like that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I agree with that too. I think she looks like a normal person. She doesn't look overly. She's obviously in good shape, obviously, but
sure,
she doesn't look like, say, Gina Carano in The Mandalorian, who's like a really built, like muscled up woman. She still retains that femininity of, Gal Gadot. And I just think it's an interesting way of doing it. They could have gone a whole different way, and they didn't. And I'm glad they didn't, because I think she's perfect for the role, obviously. And I just we'll see how, and we'll see if they do a third one.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to talk about is the whole wishing. So the MacGuffin is the Dreamstone that Max Lord wanted. And
horrible.
So it had its problems, which is that they didn't reveal to us early enough how the mechanics of what's going on, and I felt confused about what Max was doing, and like when he was with the Emir in Egypt, and I'm like, why is the guy wishing, but then now he gets his oil, and then we find out, but it was a little confusing. But yeah, but the idea, I want to really get to the concept of the wishes, and wishes as a kind of cheating.
Mm-hmm.
But also Max kind of, it felt like, and you can tell me if I'm off, it felt like they were making equivalence between wishes and prayers at one point, and that prayers are a kind of cheating as well, like you're getting a prayer answered.
See, I took it the opposite way because, okay, so when Max Lord is in his office with the televangelist guy, right? And he's saying, okay, and Max is saying, is there any way that we can get everybody to hold hands, and instead of saying, I pray, say, I wish. So he's saying it's not a prayer, it's a wish.
Okay.
And then at the end of the movie, they tie that up, because in the end of the movie, he's talking to Alistair, and I wrote it down. He says, he's talking to him about, I wish, I love you. He says, I just wish and I pray that one day I'll be able to make you proud enough that you'll be able to forgive me and love me. So he actually kind of then readopts this idea of, no, this is a prayer of mine,
okay,
and not simply a wish.
Okay.
Wasn't that kind of a lost moment in that scene with Alistair, that he could have says, if he had said, I prayed for you to come back, wouldn't that have been great? It would have changed everything. But anyway, I just thought, he says, I wished for you to come back.
Right.
I felt like that was one of the things. I felt like there was a deliberate move to not say certain things, to make sure that they said wish instead of, and maybe it's just to avoid muddling the waters of the plot, I guess. But I gotta say, I really loved that moment. I think Pedro Pascal was great in this. Some people thought he wasn't really good. I thought he was
really good.
Yes,
really,
yes.
Really good.
I was waiting for him to like pick him up and go, oh, let me introduce this little green guy I know, I mean, I have come to really love Pedro Pascal in the three things he's been in recently. Of course, The Mandalorian, this, and there was a Netflix movie that he did recently where he also had a bit of a father role, a little awkward father role, but it was a bit of a fatherly role in that. It was a sci-fi thing. I cannot remember the name of it, but you can find it if you'll IMDb it, his name. But he's done really good with these roles where he does these father figures, and this was a bad father. Let's be clear, until the very end. And I just love that interaction between the father and the son forgives the dad. And I was thinking, why does Max suffer no consequences for his bad deeds? I mean, Max nearly destroys the world and causes so much bad things. And it's because his son forgives him. Maybe he gets hauled off to the Husgau after the movie's over or something, off screen or something. But in the movie,
can hope.
Yeah. But in the movie itself, he is redeemed. And I kind of like this, like the villains. I mean, even Cheetah, Barbara, who becomes the cheetah, there's some question about her ultimate resolution. And in fact, Patty Jenkins said in an interview, she left that deliberately vague, where she was. But the villains get redeemed in a sense here, which is interesting. What do you think of those themes there?
Well, I mean, it's always nice to wrap up a character's storyline. I mean, Maxwell Lord, I mean, to get he's a big time villain in the comics, and my hope is that, like, even though he got redeemed in this movie, I hope he turns bad again and appears, because he's a big deal in the comics. I mean, he's I wouldn't call him like a like he's not like Joker or Darkseid type DC villain, but he's almost up there. He has some pretty crazy storylines. At one point, he uses the artificial intelligence to get rid of all the superheroes in the world. Which kind of relates to what he did at the end. He kind of reaches the whole world with the with the stone. So I guess there's some inspirations from the comics with his character, but he's very different from the Maxwell Lord I know from the comics. But yeah, but him having redemption, I think because of how great his performance was, it's a pretty one note villain, you know. But because Pedro Pascal is so good, I mean, gosh, he going back to Mandalorian, I mean, he does so much with just his face, and then for the most part with just his body movements,
his voice.
He's able to elevate that character. I mean, this movie would have been really bad if his character didn't work, and I felt like it did work because of his performance. Even though it's a little over the top, I don't think he did it in a way that it felt like he wasn't a part of that world, you know. And you believed the love that he had for his son, even though he was despicable in every other way. You really believed that, and that was very important for his character to kind of have that growth, and to have that his son forgiving him at the end, to have that payoff. So I really like that. I thought Barbara's character was great until the third act. I thought that one of the problems I had with the movie is that there were so many different plot lines going on that some characters suffered from it, and I thought her character suffered from it in the third act. Like, how did she know that he was at the White House and just showed up and was ready to fight? Like, you know,
right.
Many plot holes. That was one of the big ones that I thought that really bothered me. Like, how did she know to be here and all that? But anyway,
because she's like Diana, Deus Ex Machina.
There you go.
Right.
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. And I thought I wish we had a little more time to sit with her in the third act, other than that CGI fight scene, which was, I mean, it wasn't terrible. I mean, her character, I thought the final cheetah transformation, I thought actually looked good. Could have looked worse. And I thought the fight scene was okay, but all the fight scenes in this movie, all the action set pieces, I just thought in general were pale in comparison to the first movie. I mean, nothing came close to the no man's land sequence from the first Wonder Woman.
Right.
It would be hard to
it would be hard, but I thought they just didn't even come close, and I wish that they did.
Yeah.
But I understand, you know, like we've been discussing, this was more of a Diana Prince movie than a Wonder Woman movie, and it was more introspective, and that's where it shined, and it shined in the third act because of that for me, and even it took a while to get there, but ultimately it worked. Yeah.
I wanted to also ask the question, maybe y'all can, you know, fill it in for me. Why does Max want to be the Dreamstone? He wishes to be the Dreamstone. What's his motivation? Why is he doing what he does? Is it simple megalomania?
Because he wants to make his son proud, because when he was little, he wanted the attention of his father, the love of his father, and obviously he didn't get it. That was my interpretation.
Yeah, but you know, he's not giving it to his son. He's always busy. He's always running him away.
Right. Because he's trying to prove himself, it seems like. Yeah.
It's a shame.
The sad irony is, in order to try to accomplish what he's trying to accomplish, he's becoming what he doesn't want to be. Which is, I mean, to be fair, this is a common problem. There are many young men who become the fathers that were not the good father to them. By, you know, it's a generational problem. So I like that Patty Jenkins did not ignore that part of it and built that in. I thought that was very interesting. I think it was an interesting twist that he didn't just merely possess the Dreamstone and make wishes through it, but he became the Dreamstone. I thought that was at least clever, that part there too. I mean, that meant that he had to go around getting people to wish for things, and that introduces an interesting mechanic into the plot, which is clever.
I just loved his one great line was, "I love you because I love you."
Yeah.
And okay, that's it. That's all.
I guess I thought that Pedro Pascal was a little over the top for my liking in this role. I mean, it wasn't bad. He wasn't awful or anything. He was just, because he's a good actor. I mean, he's proven that already. I think he didn't. It's like, do you know people that act like that though? You know that I love you, Alistair. Oh, I love you.
Yeah.
The constant hugging and then I don't know. It was just.
Brother Chip, you're Italian. Of course, you know people like that.
Come on.
I know, but it just seemed. I don't know. It's just I didn't.
It was larger than life. It was larger than life.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a
television
personality, so I think that kind of bleeds into his, his ego and his personal life too. So
why not just wish for all the money in the world or something crazy?
Well, because then the movie would have ended.
I know.
Exactly.
I mean, that would have been the smart thing for him to do, is just wish for all the money, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't. That's the thing. It wasn't. Nothing was ever enough for him.
Yeah, he kept saying, "Why not more?"
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Right. At the end, he kept saying to Angela, "Why not more? More." And greed became everything, which might be part of why this movie was set in the 80s. The whole greed is good Gordon Gekko era, which may be a little overplayed, but that it is sort of identified with the 80s, and that he kind of became like a Gordon Gekko character of just more. So I agree with that. Let's address the possession in the room, the possession elephant in the room. Steve Trevor.
Oh,
I have to say, it bothers me that they had him take over a guy's body.
Exactly.
That Diana and he had an intimate encounter.
Relations.
Right.
That was so weird. Yeah, I agree.
I was uncomfortable. It was not right. It was not moral. And they put him in danger. And he's never even given a name. Hey,
plus, Bob.
Yeah. Plus,
something.
Maybe he did have a passport. Like, Steve doesn't have a passport, but he's got. Never mind. That's a whole nother thing. But but what do you all think?
It goes back to the jet.
Yes, it goes back to the jet. But what do y'all think of this? The Steve dropping into the guy's body as a spirit in him.
Well, this was the biggest problem I had with the movie. Everything that people wished for happened. That big wall appeared out of nowhere. All this stuff, the nuclear weapons appeared out of nowhere. But somehow they have to give Steve Trevor some other guy's body? Why can't he just appear out of nowhere?
Right.
I mean, I don't understand what the thought process was to that.
Well,
why would you say, if you're in the writing room and say, okay, I got it. He comes back as another guy, but he looks like himself to Diana. Let's just do that. That makes no sense.
There is some sense.
Well, maybe they were flirting with reincarnation and didn't want to really, maybe he was, who knows? It is. It's a terrible plot point.
Did you hear what he said at the beginning, though? When he came back, he said, I was at this wonderful place. I know it was wonderful. And I was there, and it was great. And then I was here.
Got plucked out of heaven.
At the end, he said,
she grabbed him out of heaven.
This is wrong.
She grabbed him out of paradise.
So
brought him back
Angela's
in this other guy's body.
Yeah,
so
I think Angela's got a point. Yeah,
it's not the strongest device in the movie, definitely not. But I think it sort of plays to, I talked a little bit earlier about being blind to certain things, Max Lord kept telling his son, you'll see, where in reality, his son already is proud of him. He just doesn't see that. I think it's a little bit that way with Diana and Steve, because it's interesting. They have this whole mirror scene right in the random guy's apartment where Steve keeps looking at himself in the mirror and he sees the other guy. But Diana actually says, she has this line where she says, he's great, but all I see is you.
Right.
And it's sort of like Diana is blinded by her strong desire to have Steve back in her life, that she's totally blind to reality. Like in reality, that's not Steve. He's not there. He's dead, Right. But and then too, like that scene takes place right after she goes to this party where she had previously said, I don't go to those parties. Well, she went to this party specifically to make sure that that stone was safe from Max and Barbara. But in the end, she gets distracted because of the sky. Right. So I think it kind of has to do with like how, our selfish desires blind us to the reality that is in front of us, whatever our calling is, whatever we should be seeing. I know, like I said, it's not the strongest device in the world, but to me, that's kind of what I got from it.
That's a good way of doing it. That's a good way of putting it.
I was going to say, it also sets up at the end, she's got to let Steve go, not just to save the world too, but also he's got to go because this is not his body. This is not his time, not his place. It's, to go back to the beginning, it's cheating. It's right. Cheating. If he had dropped out of the sky, like, it's Steve again, or, standing there, it might have been harder for her to let him go. But in this case, she had to let him go because, for all the reasons, but also because that's not Steve's body. That's not Steve there. And I think that, but I had some existential issues with some moral issues with, he had the existential issues. I had the moral issues with what they were doing to that poor guy.
Yeah. I mean, somebody, I heard somebody say, and I'm not sure I agree with this, but, it's almost like this person claimed it was like rape.
It was non-consensual, right? Non-consensual activity. Yeah.
I literally, when I was watching the movie with my wife, and I turned to her like, she just slept with some random guy. Like,
yes.
Like this is sort of weird. And I was like, I'm hoping there's some sort of like way they can justify it where she didn't actually sleep with the other guy, but they didn't. I mean, I agree with everyone. It was really weird the way they brought him back. They explain it in the movie well enough to where it didn't cause you to think of how weird it was. But Steve Trevor himself, I mean, this was one of the best parts of the movie as well. Like just his character, the fish out of water, sort of thing with him. And he brought the comedic element and a lot of good, obviously a lot of emotional beats. And Chris Pine is he's great. And he, very good actor. And he, took this character that's not, that's kind of boring from the comics and brought him to life, in the movies. And I really thought that he shined in this film. But unfortunately, there's some issues with the plot device to bring him back. But, it was nice having him around.
I thought that it was a fantastic gag that the clothing scene was repeated in reverse with her kind of bringing him up to speed on what was happening in
that's right
in that present time.
That was a callback.
The parachute pants was kind of funny.
Does everyone parachute?
Does everybody parachute?
Did y'all notice that the very first shirt that he tries on is a cheetah print shirt?
Yes. Yes. Well, and
Diana had the cheetah print shoes.
Yes.
There was cheetah throughout the whole movie. There was a lot of cheetah.
Wink, cheetah.
Yeah, a lot of cheetah.
It escalated.
Yeah.
And I did love the comedy of Steve like experiencing the future of the 80s, which is funny for audiences 30 years later, 35 years later, so thinking of the 80s as the future and just his experience of it. It was a lot of fun. Although they did have escalators in the early 20th century. Let's just stipulate, but I'm picking, so I have to move on. So
and they had trash cans too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Just not weird trash cans. That's the problem.
The trash can. Yeah.
He's looking at it like it's
and they
modern
had weird modern art.
Yeah, they did. They did.
That was great. I laughed out loud at that one.
Now, at the end, the resolution is that everyone has to renounce their wish. But does that assume that all the wishes were selfish and self-serving? Like I saw someone was saying, like, in fact, if you ever watch on Screen Rant, on the YouTube channel Screen Rant, where they do the pitch meeting for the various movies, they did the pitch meeting for this one. And the studio exec is like, but what about, maybe someone who has terminal cancer? Is that a selfish wish? What about someone wishing to feed their child? And I'm thinking, Mother Teresa was alive. Surely she would pray for peace. Like she would wish for peace. So I wondered, is it presenting a cynical view of people that everyone's wishes would have been something that needed to be renounced? What do you think?
Well, the only wishes that they show people wishing for are selfish wishes.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if that was because they were under the influence of Max Lord and he was trying to get to the selfish part of people.
Right.
Whenever he was having interactions with people. So that was why it kind of worked for me. I mean, not 100%, obviously, for the reasons that you say, but from what they show, it's all about, I wish you would drop dead, and I wish I had nuclear warheads, and I wish I was famous, and all this stuff. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Diana calls it sinful and greedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that scene where the guy wished his wife dropped dead, that was
wow.
That was gratuitous. I mean, we didn't need that.
Wasn't it? Well, it was the woman who owned the restaurant or something. It was like
whatever it was.
But yes, that was over.
It was gratuitous. I mean, it was unnecessary. I mean, we get it. The wishes are bad. We get it.
Right.
Even good wishes have consequences, though, because I think it was in Storm, in wrong universe, but in Storm's history, she gets in trouble when she goes back to Africa to see her people and find her tribe and origins, and she sees that they are suffering a drought, and so she calls upon her powers to bring water. But where did the water come from? It took water away from someone else,
right,
to replace it. And so, wishing for me to wish something, right now is going to have an effect on someone else's continuity or whatever circumstances. I think.
And you do, and one of the stipulations of wishing is you lose your biggest strength, right? So Diana lost was losing her strength, or literally her physical strength, and Barbara, lost.
Her
I guess her innocence, joy, and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the movie even added another element of that, adding more consequences to it.
It was that monkey paw thing.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Diana brought it up at one point.
Right.
But I will say, I thought in general, the acting in this was pretty good.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought. And Gal Gadot she's really a good actress, and that scene at the end when she has to renounce her wish, and and she's saying goodbye to Steve again, and and it's like, it was heartbreaking, and she really showed that in her face and in her body and just in her interactions. It was just.
She sells it.
She really sold it.
Mm-hmm.
And I, if there was one scene in the movie where, maybe a little bit of dust was in my eyes, that was it.
Yes. Yeah. I do like this idea that they were telling you that, there is no free lunch. that you can't get something for nothing, which is a contrast to, so wishing there's no free lunch, but as we've seen before, with prayer, that's free. The God's gifts are free. They come with no strings attached. They are literally grace and love. So I think that is an interesting contrast that you could make, especially if you talk to people about this movie, is, while the wishes had a price to them, prayer and God's response to prayer is given freely. And that's the interesting contrast there.
Well, yeah, because prayer isn't about necessarily what you want. It's what God wants for you. Right. Right. So, and, a lot of people, when they pray, I mean, like, I know I'll speak for myself. When I'm praying, it's mostly I'm praying for other people. I mean, I'm not sitting up in my room praying for me, like to win the scratch ticket or something.
You're not supposed to do that?
No, well, I mean, you can.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. But you get my point.
You should wish that. You should wish it. Don't pray for it.
Oh, right. I'll work on that.
Yeah. Because if you pray for it, you might not get that. You might get something else. God might want to teach you a lesson about, poverty, and you don't want that.
Don't pray to be humble. God will make you humble.
That's for sure. He'll give you, if you don't pray for patience unless you really want it.
There's one way to learn patience.
That's right.
I can't get to the end of this. We're not quite at the end of this. I want to ask, for what you guys have, but I do want to make sure I bring up the best scene in the movie, which comes halfway through the credits.
Okay.
Which is when we see Linda Carter show up as Asteria. I just have a soft spot for Linda Carter because I had a huge crush on her when I was 10 years old or whatever it was. And so it was great to see her back on screen. It was really awesome.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad they were able to fit her in.
Yeah, I was wondering where she was because I knew she was going to be in the movie. And yeah, that was cool how she ended up being Asteria and she's, helping people in secret like Diana is.
Yep.
And I love it's the same comment. It's the same comment that Diana told Barbara.
Right. So a couple little things I want to throw in there. Diana lives at the Watergate Hotel.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. The little.
I'm staring at it. I'm like, that's the Watergate.
Yes, it's the Watergate Hotel. I mean, it's not like the early 70s. It's not WW72 or it's
right.
But the also dumbest crooks ever at the mall.
Oh my goodness,
they were the worst crooks ever. Now
that was a fun action sequence.
It was,
It was.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why it was there. It was kind of, well, let's reintroduce everybody to Wonder Woman, like, oh, here she is in the 80s. Isn't the 80s weird? Look at all the weird people in the 80s,
I saw Stranger Things. I know it's weird. So now
I wish she didn't wear high heels.
Yeah. Wonder Woman
in her costume.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Whatever.
It sends a message. Now, did everybody understood that the heist was was where the Dreamstone was? Some people I heard online missed that, but I didn't know if that was, it came across clearly. So that was that. And then if I've got any other little notes, nothing really on them important. Although, actually, the one last thing, she kept saving children. There was very much children in danger. She's looking out for them, saving them. I really like that. It's a very, it's a feminine thing, right? I mean,
maternal.
Yes.
Yeah. And
maternal. Is she sensitive? Does she have reciprocity with her friend? I mean, what are the 4 characteristics, right? Spiritual motherhood.
If you're trying to save people in secret, I mean, who better than to save the children? Because they'll either keep your secret or no one will believe them. So
that's right.
Yeah, I mean,
it goes with the whole, I think, theme of greatness is not what you think it is, right? That ultimately, and we see that too, and we haven't really talked about Barbara's character very much, but Barbara, Cheetah grows out of this catcalling situation, which is, something that women go through all the time. And, she ends up feeling like having power over the man who is catcalling her is ultimately what empowers her and makes her great and strong. But ultimately, the message of the movie is that, like I kind of talked about before, that it's humility, it's vulnerability. And what exemplifies that more than a child, right? Like, that's why at the end of the movie, we get that such a memorable line from a child, that he's setting his father straight. Right. I love you because you're my dad,
Right.
It's there's a very, very much a childlike. So, speaking of Barbara, I just want to there's a little Easter egg. The homeless guy that Barbara gives the food to, he's reading a book, Waiting for Godot, which I thought was really funny.
I didn't even.
How did I miss that?
I know. I'll have to go back and watch that now.
But I really, it's interesting, the Barbara character, because it's on one hand it plays into cliches a little bit. But on the other hand, it's an interesting arc for her. I mean, the cliche is, she's the nerd who has to come out of her shell, and she really knows she's really come out of her shell when she's not the girl who wears glasses anymore. Like, it's just, I don't like that. I wear glasses, and I'm perfectly fine. I'm also still kind of a nerd, but that's okay. But so I don't necessarily like the Maria puts on her glasses.
Embrace your nerdiness.
Exactly. But. So I don't necessarily love that, but it was an interesting arc to see how the two paths of empowerment, the Diana path and the Barbara path, and Diana sort of lived with it, so she had integrated her power of protecting, and when it's dropped on Barbara, she doesn't know how to do it right, and also the stone strips her humanity from her as well, and so her power becomes destructive and mean, and she almost stomps the guy to death. Maybe she did. We don't necessarily know, but let's say
we
she
really
did.
Don't know if he was dead or not.
Yeah. So what do y'all think of Barbara's arc in this movie?
Well, I thought, Kristen Wiig is a nice comedic actress.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I thought she was the best fit for this role in this movie. But I think that kind of hurt the character in a little ways for me. I mean, because I've seen that act that she does,
right? That
little mumbling under her breath about everything, and she did that on Saturday Night Live. She's done it in a ton of movies. It's an old act, and I just think they could have had a real powerhouse actress take that role and really make her, a true nemesis for Diana, for Wonder Woman. I just think that would have been cool. And I just think they wasted it. I mean, they wasted it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, based on this whole wish thing, which is so ridiculous, but I don't know, like, what's going to happen in the future. Did she
renounce it?
Did she renounce her wish? Did she not? Is she going to be able to walk around with other humans because now she looks like a cat?
No, at the end she reverted to her
right. I know, but so did she renounce her wish or not?
Or does she have the power to go back and forth? Right.
Yeah.
What I felt was that she did renounce her wish because she looked like her normal self.
Right.
But like you mentioned earlier, it was kind of left ambiguous. So, because we don't know, like, is she capable of turning into full cheetah and then going back? Like, we don't know that. I mean, we saw her just kind of evolve throughout the film, and I mean, Cheetah is one of Wonder Woman's main nemesis in the comics. So
I was just going to ask you that.
And I mean, she's again kind of like Maxwell Lord. She's not like this crazy DC villain on a level that kind of she doesn't really run into a lot of the other major characters that often. But as far as this Wonder Woman herself, she's a classic villain, and I thought Kristen Wiig did a good job with what they gave her. I thought it was an interesting choice. Yeah, that was an interesting choice as far as casting. I loved her on Saturday Night Live, and I've seen her in some Yeah, I've seen her in some dramatic roles, and I thought she did a good job. But and I thought she did better than I expected. And like I said, with the material, I thought they could have done the character a better service, especially in the later in the movie. And yeah, like you mentioned, Father, the sort of like, oh, I'm quirky and I'm shy and I wear. I kept saying, like, if she just took her glasses off, maybe
right.
guys would right. Like all she really did was take her glasses off, put a dress on, and
or better yet, not take your glasses, have glasses that flatter you. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. I mean,
she didn't even have,
or don't wear heels. Like if you can't walk in the door,
I think women wearing high heels is it looks torturous to me, and I don't understand why people do it. But I mean, it just looks terrible. It looks like so painful to me, and every time I see a woman in high heels, I'm like, say a little prayer because I just don't want her to fall. It just looks terrible, painful.
Now that the three guys on the panel have had our say about Barbara,
right? I know.
Let's hear from the ladies what they think about Barbara's character.
I felt bad for her in so many ways because she was just one-dimensional, really. She didn't have very much going on there. But I don't know what I want to say anymore. I'll think about it in a second.
Getting late.
I had something deep and profound, but go ahead, Angela.
Well, okay. So, there, like we've been saying, there's really not that much time for all the different character development and plot and everything that's going on in this movie because we're all over the world and we've got to know all these different things and what's going. So, there really wasn't that much time for us to get to know her on a super deep level, her backstory. And I think in the comics, she's like totally different, right? She's not even like a human being. Is that true?
Well, there's different iterations of Cheetah. There's actually, there are Cheetahs that are not Barbara, but Barbara is kind of one of the more recent and well-known iterations of her. And yeah, in the comics, I mean, I know she in one of the runs she gets her powers like some African tribe, does some like voodoo stuff, and she gets her powers that way because. She's actually in search for the lasso of truth herself, and then on her journey there, she finds out a way to become like this powerful being. So and with comics, you can find a run where Cheetah is totally different. I think with any comic book movie, when you see a beloved character, a hero or villain, you can't really tie it to one comic book run, because there's just a limitless amount of interpretations of all these different characters. So you can't really adhere to one. But I've the way that her story was told in the movie, at least the way that she became Cheetah was not something that it didn't strike me as something that I remember from the comic. So, but the character herself is definitely jealous of Wonder Woman and wants to be like her, wants her powers. So that aspect of it was definitely very true to her comic counterpart.
Well, think about if they had like Anne Hathaway as Cheetah, as Barbara.
So a dramatic actress.
She's already done that arc, though, in The Princess Diaries. She's already done the nerd one.
Yes.
But she has...
And she co-started with Chris Pine.
Yeah. She has gravitas, I think. She would bring something to the role that's different. It didn't need to be a comedic actor to play that role. I think
what they did was they wrote a comedic role and cast a comedic actor. I think they made the early iteration of Barbara more comedic, and that's perhaps why they cast an actress to play.
Perhaps.
I was thinking maybe along the lines of like, comedians typically tend to work from a place of pain.
Right.
True.
Get a little too deep into it. But like the character of Barbara being someone who has been, overlooked and, all the things that we kind of know about this trope. But I did very much appreciate the catcalling part of the movie because, like I said, as a woman, that was very, very relatable especially in the sense of like in the first iteration of the catcalling, when Diana comes and protects her, Diana tells Barbara, honestly, it takes no power at all to defend yourself. And that is an important line because she doesn't learn that lesson. Barbara doesn't learn that lesson. And
Diana also tells her, and I'll show you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then in the second catcalling situation, she's already Cheetah. She's running down the street, right? And she has all these men calling after her. And the one that is returning in his role as the drunk, guy, he actually calls out to her and says, slow down. He says, slow down twice. And I think that was very intentional on Patty Jenkins' part because it is this scene of a woman being powerful and going forward and a man saying, slow down. I'm not comfortable with how fast you're going. And he also calls her girl. And that's when she stops and she turns around. And I felt very much that was very relatable to some situations that I've been in personally. So, for her to then become drunk on this concept of power, and lose her sense of who she is, I think it's very much, we've been talking about the feminine genius and it's like the opposite of that, right? Like to be a strong woman, you don't need to be this, I guess, stereotypical type of.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. That she could have been, she could have been powerful in a different sense. She didn't have to slow down and look at him and give him a piece of her mind and all that and beat him up, and I think that is kind of a metaphor for how women have the choice to act towards men who look down on them or try to stop them from moving forward in their life or what have you. So I liked that aspect of the character very much.
There was that nice moment too when the homeless guy that she'd helped before, who she had a relationship with, she would bring him meals, obviously, and they knew each other, and he says to her, as seeing at what she's done, "What happened to you?" Like something, like obviously something has changed with her. She's now more confident and poised and beautiful and all this strong. But it's clear he's not saying how did all these good things happen to you? He's saying, wow, something bad has happened to you. What has happened to you? And I thought that was an interesting moment. And that's when she has a moment to stop and realize what she's about to do and takes off.
And says, mind your business.
Yeah, right.
Mind your business.
Right.
Yeah.
So I just want to start to wrap things up, but I don't want to end things because I want to ask if each of you, if you have any other notes you want to share, any other parts of this. Maria, let's start with you. Do you have anything you wanted to share?
I do. I remembered what I was going to say, and it was launched from Barbara, but not necessarily about her. I was left wondering what happened to her. Did she renounce the wish or not? But I felt like the story should have been the moment that Max renounced it, that everything should have gone back to normal. And it didn't. It looked like there was all this destruction that remained. In other words, the consequences, it's kind of like when we sin, right? We can be forgiven, but there's still some temporal issues that are left behind that need to be resolved. Yeah. And I thought that was neat. I thought that it was very interesting. I mean, she looked in a bad place, but Max walks out into a very destroyed DC, right. So one is to imagine that the rest of the world is in bad shape. You saw those images of the kids when the river came back, when the wall was destroyed and the river came back, that they were drinking water out of the river in their destruction. So how was that resolved historically?
Interesting. Yeah, like the Bruce Wayne never mentions it in Justice League or anything. You know what I mean? Or Batman or Superman. Hey, wait a minute. Weren't you in that DC thing back in the 80s?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Like that never comes up. Like, and that was one of the other things about the scene in the mall that kind of perturbed me a little bit was she takes off her whatever that is, tiara, and she flings it at the security cameras. What about the tapes, Diana?
Yeah. I know, right? They see everything before that she took that off.
Exactly. Where are you to go?
She was also broadcast to 3 billion people at the end of the movie, too.
Exactly. It's not like she
No, she wasn't.
She
her
wasn't.
Voice was.
Her voice was.
But not her face.
Oh, right.
It was all gold on the screen.
Right. The camera was broken.
That's
right,
true.
right. That's true.
That's true.
Thank you. Father Chip, any last notes, Father Chip?
No, I think I've said my piece. I think it was a decent outing. Not great, not as good as the first one, and I think they could be better. It could be better. It's not horrible. It's not like you should watch it if you haven't seen it. If you've listened this far and you haven't seen it, you kind of know the story. So, I don't know.
Go enjoy it.
But you'll enjoy it. I think it's not an unenjoyable.
Andrew?
Yeah, I would echo what Father Chip says. It's, I enjoyed it. I think it being, this sort of hybrid COVID release where it was released in theaters wherever theaters are open and then on HBO Max everywhere else. I think it helped the movie. I think I liked it more because I just got to sit at home and watch it.
Yes.
It didn't feel like the first Wonder Woman or any or something like on a Marvel level type event film. Like we've been saying, it was more of a introspective Diana Prince sort of film without a big huge action set piece in the third act, which is something you would want to see in a big theater. So I felt like I would have been more disappointed if I saw it in a theater.
Interesting.
I think I enjoyed it more because I saw it at home, and
good point.
It helped it in a weird way. Obviously, it wasn't intentional. It wasn't intended for this sort of release. So,
right.
So yeah, it's enjoyable. Not as strong as the first. I agree, Father Chip. But definitely want to see more Wonder Woman. And,
yes, absolutely.
And yeah, I think whether it's Patty Jenkins, I think she can do better. But I would like to see it in the hands of maybe another director, another female director.
Not Ryan Johnson.
I did enjoy Knives Out. I'll say that.
Yeah,
but
that I did too, actually.
Yeah, maybe he should stay away from big properties and just do more movies like that. Yeah. But yeah, definitely. I think they'll definitely make a third one, and
good.
And I'm sure whatever DC's plans are in the future for Justice League, I'm sure she'll be a big part of it. So, and we're going to see her soon in March in the
Nolan cut. So. Yeah, the Snyder cut. Nolan.
Yeah, Nolan cut. Yeah.
That would be weird. Sorry.
Yeah, that would be really weird.
Inception.
Yeah.
All right, Angela, you get the last word.
Oh gosh. Well, one thing that we didn't really talk about that much was the mythos behind Asteria and her character. And I like that Diana, when she's telling the story, she says that Asteria sacrificed herself for a better day for others. Mm. And Asteria has these wings on the armor. And one of the things that I grumbled about when I first watched this movie for the first time was the whole scene of Wonder Woman flying, because I thought it was excessive, too long, boring. But the second time that I watched it, I realized that it takes place after she renounces her wish, after she renounces essentially her selfishness, that she is then able to fly. And so I appreciated that. And I think that's a good point. That's a good message. I think there were a lot of great messages in this movie that I appreciated. So despite the little things that kind of bugged me, ultimately, I think I'll be able to rewatch this and continue to benefit from the themes and the deeper meanings.
Excellent. That is a great way to wrap it up.
Great.
Before we do end things, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of movies and TV shows, including Santa S., Kathy S., Mark M., Father Nathan L., and Andrew B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the secrets of movies and TV shows and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. So what did you think of Wonder Woman 84, WW 84? Do you agree with us? Do you disagree with us? Do you agree with some of us? Let us know by commenting on the show. You can do so at sqpn.com/secrets or the StarQuest Facebook page, or send an email to secrets@sqpn.com. Until next time, Angela Cialana, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of Wonder Woman 84.
My pleasure.
Maria Johnson, thank you as well.
Oh, joy. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Andrew Hermes.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you, Father Chip Hines.
Thanks for having me, and I really appreciated Angela and Maria's point of view on this movie.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Movies and TV Shows on StarQuest.